So this session, if you haven't read the description yet, is about outdoors and garages and luxury technologies for those spaces. This is a little bit different than some of the other sessions we're going to do this week. It is really more of an idea book, a picture book of some things that the panelists here have worked on in the past, including myself. COVID brought us a whole raft of changes with how we live inside and outside. And I think outdoor spaces, at least from my observations, became a lot more important at that time in our history. And I think that trend just continues. There's a lot of movement to keep outdoor spaces in and bring some indoor spaces outside. And to focus on things that sort of bring us joy in life. So there's things from car collections to outdoor entertainment systems to having outdoor parties, collections of everything, wine, bourbon, you name it. People are working on those things to make their lives a little bit more enjoyable inside the places where they live. So that's what this panel's about. I want to introduce, or I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll hop into a couple cool things we've worked on.
Jason Orvosh, president of Orvosh Builders. We're a small remodeler, custom home builder out of Midland, Michigan.
Ron Wanless, I'm with Technology Design Associates. We're an integration firm on the western states. And I've been doing this for about 41 years now.
My name is Mike Cleary. I'm the director of marketing for Sonance. We're a family-owned manufacturer. We're celebrating 40 years this year, and we get to share some interesting applications with you today. So thanks for having us.
Awesome. Good. Thank you, guys. We're going to start with garages. Any of you build garages at all? So interesting story. I just had a good friend who's a builder, and he built a house for a client. He ended up moving in with her recently. And he went back to the architect afterwards, and his biggest complaint was that the garage is big enough. He drives an F-350 that he pulls trailers with. He's got an old Range Rover that he keeps in the garage, and the garage is barely big enough for the vehicles and not a lot of space in between. So I was interested to hear that the architect was receiving that feedback that garages need to be designed with those things in mind, but also he's a cyclist, and he's got a bike collection in that garage, and he's got a small workshop. So I think this is what we're going to see a lot of in this conversation. This is a project I worked on in the past, but Ron, I know you've got a bunch of garages. You've worked on a bunch of projects with outdoor spaces. I'm going to flip through some photos in the background.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we've done on the garage side. You get the guys that are car collectors or they're motorcycle collectors or they're whatever. So they get these huge garages and they become a place where they actually spend time. So one of the things we found is that you need to focus on a lot of things with those guys and giving them really good lighting so that they're able to show off their collections and their fun stuff, but also workspaces so that they can work on them. Not that they're working on their own cars or anything like that. Most of these guys just pay somebody to do that, but still needs to get done. Or maybe they're like Sean said, they're a cyclist and they got 14 bicycles in there and they work on those themselves. So having those spaces really functional is really important. Audio, video, other things, internet connections, all of those things. Garages are actually an area that people spend a lot more time these days than you would expect.
Is that term garage used a little more loosely than it used to be?
You still put a car in there sometimes, right?
Occasionally.
Occasionally, yeah.
I think of them as toy garages, or toy showrooms sometimes is how they get referred to. And whether it's family time or kids or hobbies, it seems like it's a place where families seem to congregate around the kitchen and then the garage. And so we're seeing this idea of lighting, audio, even media being equally important in some of these flex spaces that in the past it was kind of we're not putting anything in there, right? And so some of these images you're showing are incredible. I've seen everything from home theaters to bowling alleys to car and motorcycle showrooms. But even on the entry to mid-level market, I'm seeing projects where it's, hey, kids are going to do video games, ping pong, and after school club is going to hang out. So it's interesting kind of on the whole scope or scale of price per square foot. So.
Well, let's touch on lighting. Jason, I know that you've sent me some photographs and some things that you've done. What's the trend in lighting for garages? Are we looking at future-proofing these? Are we thinking about what this might become, or are you starting working on grand design from the beginning?
Yeah, a lot of garages, it makes sense. Depends on use. There's not as many Ferraris in my town as maybe somebody else's. So we come from a little more on the practical side, but it's important for lighting, especially from a more security standpoint for what I get into. There is some accent lighting, things that people want to show off a certain piece or certain things like that. But if you don't integrate in the beginning, it's a real head. Retrofitting is terrible. You hear me say that word a lot. So it's expensive, right? I mean, if you guys are all builders like me, you get the, oh, but I wanted to do this. Well, like we're closing, like we're trying to hand this project over, but now you want a wire here, which is not accessible, of course. So a lot of that stuff is by maybe asking the right questions of what their intent of purpose is something that I always tell people is try to get it out of them of what do they really want to do. They're not always forthcoming on that. So like, do you want to light a certain piece, things like that, and obviously that conversation sprawls into audio, video, and other things. But yeah, for lighting, mostly just what is your intent and is there something you want to show off? Sometimes people don't want to tell you that they have something really nice that they want to show off. Some people are like, hey, I have 5 of them, so I don't really care. The whole town knows. A lot of my customers are like, hey, I do have this thing, but I only drive it on Saturdays when I'm not in town because I don't want people to see my car or whatever. So there'll be a lot of that where they don't want to tell you that because they think it's going to double their budget. So a lot of times it's just you have to ask them the right question.
Well, you're a little bit unique in that you do a lot of this work yourself, right? Have we talked about that?
Yes, that's why I have gray hair.
Well, what inspired you to get into the technology business as a builder?
I just thought that it wasn't being serviced correctly by a lot of builders. They weren't asking the right questions. So my philosophy is I don't care if you get a Ring or a Nest. My wife is a diehard. I love my Ring doorbell. I've had 7 doorbells on my house. I switch them yearly, and she hates all of them except for that one. I'm like, hey, it was the right product fit for her. It didn't have to be the fancy one. I mean, I've had Control 4, I've had Nice, I've had all sorts. I have the demo house, right? It's a live thing that works most of the time, as most builders probably understand. You use your own stuff to try, and I do it with tech as well. So yeah, it's just finding the right thing for people, and I think that's what a lot of times you miss is you try to sell them something that maybe they weren't looking for. It carries them away from that whole conversation versus actually finding that maybe it was a Ring or a Nest or something basic, but they might want a distributed audio. So like it's a transitional piece. So finding the right things, that's why I got into it mainly, was trying to understand what motivates your customers.
So Ron, these slides are up are your project that you sent me. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened there?
So this is actually, it's a pretty unique client. They have, well, they started with 400 acres. They now have 5,000 acres, and it's all farm property. So in order to stay in the architectural function, they actually built a pole building. So this is a metal pole building, and within that metal pole building, we have created a completely separate structure for a theater. It's a 40 by 50 theater that seats 24 people. Pretty significant. A lot of lighting, a lot of functionality, and then right beside it, on the other side of a triple wall that we had to build in between the two, is a bowling alley and party area where they are setting up functional gatherings and so forth. And actually, they have another building right next door to this that has a climbing wall and a shooting gallery and some other things. And now we're working on how we tie all this together so they can actually have giant family parties and everything else in this. So one
Can
of
we
those
move
unique
this
projects,
conference there
right?
next?
Next year,
It
we
looks-
just show up at this thing and just have a ball. But, you know, it's one of those 1 in a million projects. We don't do a ton of projects like this, but this is one of those over-the-top ones that you're going to get. I mean, your luxury builders, you're going to get clients who are like, yeah, I want to do something really unique. This was very unique, very industrial looking. Everything is, like I said, open metal beams and metal siding and so on, that we had to work through a lot of unique items, all custom lighting that we built ourselves to put in the space to keep it that way. Really great project, a lot of fun.
It's cool.
What do you think was the inspiration to build this?
The client sent me a picture initially. So they were going to do the entertainment thing one way or another. They didn't know what they wanted, but he sent me, he's out of San Diego. He sends me a picture of a small semi-private theater that they have down there. It's a public theater, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. He sends me this picture and he says, this is what I want my theater to look like. And I was like, okay. So we started with that, and then we adjusted it to the industrial theme and a lot of other things. And then I went over to LA and visited with him and his manager, and we went through a couple of things, showed him some particular ideas that I had for the industrial look, and he loved them all, and it went from there. And that was the last time I saw him, by the way. That was 3 years ago. I haven't seen the client since. that's okay.
You're still in the theater, probably.
Wait, I know I would be, but anyway, yeah, no, it's a phenomenal project. But yeah,
It's pretty cool.
What about stuff like this? I mean, this is a project that I believe Bravis did, where there's a car in the actual, it's like, that might be the basement as far as I know, of the house. Are you seeing more of that? One of us talked on one of our calls about a glass wall between the garage and
yeah, we did one where the client built a theater in the house that was right next to the garage, and so he parked his vintage Corvette up along a glass wall, and it had curtains over it. So whenever he brought people into the theater, the curtains were open, and you could see through to the space where he stored his car, which was his favorite item in life. And then they closed the curtains to watch the movie. So it was very cool. It was just another one of those unique projects, and that was actually a builder's home, so he built it for himself. So.
this is a fitness space, which looks like it's basically outside on an outbuilding. Actually, I think there's some of your speakers in there.
Yeah, I see them.
A couple big subs in there too. So natural light and lighting is an important thing for bringing that outdoor feel indoors. Jason, Ron, you guys want to talk about circadian rhythm lighting, or it feels like an appropriate conversation?
Who in here is aware of circadian rhythm lighting? Great, because not enough of us are.
Mm-hmm.
So wellness lighting is becoming a big product. It is becoming a thing that clients are asking about consistently. For those of you working with good integrators, most of the better integrators in the country have now taken on lighting as part of their product offering. I know that we're doing a lot of it, and taking advantage of that wellness lighting and the capability of changing color temperatures throughout the day to keep your body in the right rhythm, the way our bodies are designed to run, is a great opportunity, especially when you're talking about these spaces like the outdoor spaces and the garage spaces and things like that. It's nice to be able to bring the outside in and keep that bodily rhythm so that you're keeping energized during the day and you're getting a chance to chill out in the evening with a glass of wine and the right lighting. It makes a big difference in the life function. So I think that lighting option is something that everybody in the custom market should be looking at a lot more now. LED lighting has come a long way from when we first started into LED. Mm-hmm. And most of your electricians are so behind the curve, they're still going to the electrical warehouse and just grabbing the Juno cans and throwing them in the ceiling, and the lighting was really bad. So there's a lot of different options that your clients are missing out on in the lighting area these days.
So Mike, you mentioned a couple of unique ideas for garages. This is one that you brought up. These are Google photos. Sorry, we didn't actually do these projects. But you mentioned airplanes and boats. And
yeah, I think, I mean, we're talking about the ultra luxury in these cases, but we see this whole gamut, I think, and the opportunity is to think differently about these projects. My experience is that, I'll use my products as the example. We make speakers and electronics to support the beautiful homes that you all build. And price points range from a few hundred to multiple thousands of dollars each. And so it's always interesting to me when I look at a project like this, where I can remember sitting at the table with the client representative. We're talking about a particular item that we build, and the cost of that item is being questioned. And in the same conversation, but we're flying this piece of marble from Italy in for the backsplash. And so this is not a money issue. This is a value issue and a value proposition to say, are we speaking in the language where our clients understand what's possible, understand what we do, can we inspire? And so when I see something like this, clearly someone loves living on the water, where we're driving boats in and out of a boat garage on the water. And so we often talk about audio. How do we set the mood of a space? And I think lighting is probably the best counterpart to say, if the lighting is right and the audio is present, not so much that we have to shout at each other to have a conversation, but to set the tone, we can create these really magical moments. And so when I look at that deck, I think, yeah, that's family time on the deck, right? Or whatever that is.
so this is probably as good a time as any to talk about security, since we're putting high-value vehicles in these garages. We've got boats. I think Scott mentioned earlier there's an airplane hangar that's on one of these properties.
Sure.
There's some valuable items in these spaces. I guess I'll look at the other end of the table. Either of you two have any experience or any thoughts on how to best secure these and what's important?
Go ahead if you. Well, security, I mean, again, it varies on the customer, right? There's so many ways to have security integrated in and to make it a usable system. But they definitely want to know. I mean, we just use one, even just at my office, as simple as it is. I get a note from alarm.com every day of who unlocked the door. So guess who knows who showed up first every day. So it's kind of cool. Or who's the last person there that sets the alarm. Some of that, I know some of the new panels will take pictures of who presses the buttons for security purposes. Those are some pretty big upsells. And I think security a lot of times speaks more to typically the spouse in the relationship. A lot of times I can sell security very well to the women. They want to make sure that everyone's protected and their family safe. So that's one of the big pitches. We would definitely focus, you talk audio video, typically we lean to the audio video side, and then we have the security air quality side. I kind of try to differentiate those conversations. So you probably have more to go on that, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, security-wise, it's a question of what level is needed for some of these projects. So you saw a $2 million building there that is nothing but an entertainment building, and the key's left in the lock. Right? So, I mean, they're obviously not concerned about it. Now, they have gates all the way around the property, so you're not entering without them knowing it. However, and there's cameras everywhere. But the reality is their perception of security is completely different than somebody else in a different area. This happens to be in a rural area. If you're in the middle of downtown Phoenix and you're in a high-rise, hopefully you've got a concierge so nobody's getting to your place, so you're not too worried about it there. But if you're out on some place in the outskirts of the area here and you've got a big place, security is going to be a major concern. And so you have to be able to work with your clients on what their preferences and their needs are. And you can take it to the 10th level for sure on the security side with all the surveillance options and the sensor options and all the things that are out there nowadays. And they're all connected, so it's easy to view those.
So, Ron, one of the challenges that I faced when I was in your business was with multiple buildings on a property. We had to connect those buildings. And it has a whole host of problems that come along with that.
Yes, it does.
Possibility. Do you have a secret to that or a recommendation for the audience here that might work?
Get in early. Get your integrators involved early. Get them running conduits between the buildings so you got fiber interconnects and things of that sort. I can't tell you how many times we show up to a project, all the infrastructure is already done. Clients are like, yeah, we got 4 outbuildings in the main house and we want to have them all interconnected. We want them on one system. We don't want 5 separate systems. And I know you guys have run into this. It happens all the time because you don't think about this stuff when you're doing the infrastructure layouts. But get stuff so that they can be interconnected, because fiber interconnect so that this is all one network and all working together is a major key to functionality for these guys.
I think that's one of the biggest things we see is like the detached garage. Now all of a sudden they want to make it a theater room. I mean, these don't even have to be as high end as that, but they want a space to entertain, play cards, listen to music, smoke, whatever they're doing. Their cigars are not in the house. I mean, it's a real thing. So the biggest headache every time is, oh, but I don't have Wi-Fi. I don't have internet here. They can't get it that far. And we're like trenching lines and hidden, sprinkler systems and all that just to get a wire, right? And then cameras, a lot of times, you have a proprietary system. You need a camera run for each camera or Ethernet run for each camera. So all that stuff's a super headache. So it adds a ton of cost when the yard was just dug up 6 months ago and there's dirt. It's been so much easier. So that's a huge headache, especially because people overgrow their spaces, right? They use their garages for these spaces because their house isn't big enough, or they're multi-purposing, or people are repurposing spaces left and right. We're more in the rural side, so there's a lot of people have a detached garage or a barn, and they're like, well, I don't need a 40 by 60 anymore. I just got to park a few things in here, but I can make a really cool space in the back and heat it. And so we see a lot of that where we're from, and the network is always the worst part.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about decks and pools and hardscapes and softscapes and all the stuff that's not attached to another building. This is sort of in the landscape and around the house. Mike, tell me about how audio's been done for the last however many audio years there are.
Sure, yeah. These are fun slides because we typically like to make fun of ourselves in the industry, so bear with me for a second. But the traditional model, I'll use this house as the example, is we would bolt a speaker to the end of the house and we would point it at your client's neighbors, and we would turn it up in order to make sure they know that we like the music that we like. No, I'm teasing, but that's honestly how it often comes off, is put as big of a speaker pointing at the neighbors as possible. And so a few years ago, we had this idea that said, we would not light this beautiful backyard with 2 giant, security floodlights, right? There's decorative light, there's functional light. And so we take a lot of the lighting design cues and say what if we could hide light and speakers all throughout a space so that our conversation level could be this, and simply by proximity, right? We can be closer to a speaker, closer to a light, so it allows us to take the entire environment and bring it down. And so maybe in our Q&A session, but we'll get into some examples of that, where speakers that are made to look like lights, or that even get subwoofers that get buried down into the ground, concealment, and then placement. So pretty fun.
Jason, I'm going to get some pictures of your place eventually. I don't remember where they are in this presentation, so I'm just going to jump ahead. You did a lot of stuff in your own backyard, and I think you told me it's a little bit of an experimentation process or project, and I guess you came to some conclusions after doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't need color lights everywhere. I thought it was a good idea. It wasn't that fun to pay for, but yeah, so I did kind of an over-the-top thing in my backyard. I wanted people to see it. Again, we're in a smaller area, so, and unfortunately, that's not my house. But
I was going to say, nice work.
Yeah.
Nice work. Yeah.
Is that when you were?
I wouldn't be here, though.
Yeah.
Mine's just got a bunch of color lights everywhere, but yeah, so we tried to do it just to show people. Yeah, so that's the front. And so this one, this was my Halloween picture. So I was just showing that, like, we had a big Halloween party, so I went and changed all the lights to orange and purple. Mm-hmm. Hindsight, you probably could have did half the lights in white and just dimmed them down, but I can do red in any light I want. So I like that controllability. We originally started with some like hue lights and the can lights. I'm like, I don't want to deal with Christmas lights again, so I had 10 can lights. I'm like, perfect, great investment, $600-700. I got colored lights, I can choose what I want. But then we did the landscaping. Well, actually, I tore it out 4 years after I put it in. I redid the landscaping, and I'm like, I want lights everywhere. And yeah, at this point, I actually wish I put a speaker up front. So I actually shoved a Sonos Move in the front porch. So when people are walking up, the witches making their cackling noises and all that. But it kind of sets the tone for like the event. But it does that in my backyard. I had a few pictures there too. But in the backyard, we actually did colored lighting. We lit like rock walls. Yeah, so that's the back. And so like in the back, the far side of that, I actually have like 4-foot tall boulder walls, and I lit them from the ground. And they're the coolest thing to sit at a campfire with like a soft purple, or you do like some really neat lighting. And the color lighting too is fun because, yeah, right there, that's not a terrible place to hang out. So that part's super fun, but people really get excited about the experience of being back there and having a fire, and you kind of have your music. So I have rock speakers, I have an in-ground sub, all this stuff that looks pretty. It's not obvious because that's what happens, like Mike was saying, it gets real gaudy, right? Like you're looking at, oh, there's your speakers. But it's nice to have a whole bunch all around so we can listen to it relatively quiet. Neighbors in the subdivision prefer quiet. I've had 2 noise complaints, but you know, again, sizing it right, you want a bunch of little speakers kind of danced around there. But it's a really fun space to be in. Really, like, I have a TV, the Samsung Terrace on the wall, just to kind of show people. And I've stuck a Sonos speaker on it, so I could tie the game back into my yard, so you can listen to the football game with the little quiet speakers. You're not blasting it from one corner. But again, it took a lot of design up front. Like, you have to know, like, what is your intention? What are you trying to do? I literally was like moving around all these deck posts because I have a walkout in Michigan. So with the walkout basement, I have posts holding my deck up everywhere. I'm like, where can I see the TV from the most spot? So I'm like, cut out this little cardboard thing. I'm like moving it around the wall to find out what my best viewing angle was, because if you're sitting at the 12-person bar, I want you to see the game or whatever. So there was a lot of thought that went into it. But again, I was more shooting from the hip. But now I know when a customer comes to me, even as the builder, like, you got to be able to choose that location. I mean, obviously a good integrator, they're going to help you kind of find that. But there's sight lines that they're going to find are the same thing you're going to find. So finding that right spot, because I'm like, oh, I got to center it on the wall. Well, it's not centered anymore. I shoved it way to the side because I could pick up 3 more seats of viewing. So that was more important at that point than the aesthetic of centered. And you can't even tell now. But again, yeah, it was a lot of ideas. Again, would have went with more white lights, but like the path lights coming up to my front yard, I like those in color all day long. I think that's the coolest thing. I rotated them so like I can do like, I wanted a candy cane, so I wanted like white and red every other once. When you walk up in the winter, like it kind of had like a little candy cane looking thing. So, but like having that vision, but again, as the builder, if I'm the customer, like, you know, to get at those things out of what they want is really critical, because you're probably putting lighting in anyway. So just find the right lighting that fits them.
So it's hard to tell in this picture, but it looks to me like you've got a little stairway going to hell right there. Is that what that is?
That's the playground. So yeah, probably pretty close.
That's good.
So Ron, can you tell me a little bit about your process? I know that, Jason, you were a little bit of a experimental process where you've got an existing space, an existing area that you're trying to outfit, and you have the luxury of it being your home. You can move things around. Ron, I'm sure that you're a little more interested in planning these systems out ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is something that, and I know a lot of you are already doing this, but I can't stress enough that working with integrators early on and getting a lot of this planning stuff done early on is a major key. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had a builder call me and they go, well, you're doing our project and the electricians are starting in 2 weeks. We need to start talking about what you guys need in here. And obviously that's not enough time to do proper planning and engineering and designing of a system these days. We're not the AV guys anymore. We're the integrators, and we're doing a lot of different systems in these homes, and you really need to spend a lot of time with the integrators, with the architects, with the clients, planning all this stuff out and making sure that it's all nailed down well in advance so you guys aren't missing out on opportunities and the clients aren't missing the experience in the end because they want the best possible options.
Paying him would have saved me money. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about video on the outside of the house. I know it's a tricky implementation. It's a difficult thing to talk about. It's expensive.
Yeah, how many people in here had a client and said, oh, I got an old TV in the garage. I'm going to stick that out on the patio, right? Oh, yeah, I've had dozens and dozens of them, okay? So, again, planning is key, and education is a major point of what we as integrators are supposed to be doing for the clients. But reality is if you're doing video outdoors, it has to be planned appropriately. You have to use appropriate products. This is not a space where you can take your old Samsung TV and stick it out on the patio and hope that it's going to work for the next 2 or 3 years, or that you're even going to be able to see it at all in the middle of the day. If you're going to want to do big video, you're going to want to be able to do something with video walls or projection systems that can actually put out enough light to be able to be visible during the day, or at least during the early evening hours. We've all come across projects where clients are just like, yeah, I just want to throw a TV out there, and you tell them that it's a $5,000 TV, and they go, I can go buy that for $700 at Best Buy. And you're like, no, that's not the same TV. And educating those clients so that they know what they should expect is a major part of what we do with that. And if they're wanting big video, there's a lot of planning that has to go into that. Big video is a real challenge. I mean, you can get up to, we just placed an order for 2 more 85-inch TVs to set side by side out at somebody's pool so they can watch the football games. That's great. That's a flat panel display. That's easy enough to get. But when you want to get into big video, projection systems or rear projection systems or anything like that, there's a ton of planning that goes into that to where it'll actually function. So you want to work really early on with your integrators for that. A lot of people are doing a lot of outdoor video. Outdoor spaces are becoming so big since the pandemic. Everybody wants audio, everybody wants video, everybody wants the family to be able to sit out there and have a family get together outside now at the home versus going out somewhere and going to a movie theater or going to something like that. They want the experience right there with their family. So this is a big option, and it's something that has to really be planned out well.
So a big moment for me, my daughter was a sophomore in college and moved into her first apartment, and it was a brand new building that had just been completed. So we were moving her in as they're finishing painting the hallways. And I got the tour of the building, and on the rooftop of the apartment building in Columbia, South Carolina, is a swimming pool with a 240-inch LED display on the end of the pool. It's literally in the pool.
There you go.
So you've got 19-year-old college kids with drinking beer sitting in the pool. They had a hot tub. They had a complete theater system. They had a golf simulator. And it sort of sparked this for me where I thought this is really important to 18 and 19-year-old children, or kids, young adults, not children, I guess. It's got to be important to the general public. So this has been an inspiration for me to
cool.
pay more attention to what's going on outside the house.
I want to go back to college.
I know. Where do I sign up?
It was nicer than my house.
I guess so.
Dad, I'm not coming home. I'm staying.
So one more thing I want to touch on, maybe the two at the end of the table can talk about it too. I wrote it down as outdoor climate control because I didn't know what else to say. But I've seen a trend because these outdoor spaces are bigger. There's a lot more motorized screens to keep the bugs out. There are heaters being built into patios. There are cooling systems in warmer climates. What's the trend there? What are you seeing? And, what should we plan for?
Well, I'm sure you get a lot of this because you're in Michigan, so you got to deal with the cold, right? And I actually live in Oregon during the summer, but not in the winter months because it's too damn cold for me anymore. But that is a big challenge. So again, we're talking about outdoor spaces. It's great to have some music. It's great to have a television. It's great to have a lot of those things. But when it's all of a sudden it's 35 or 40 degrees outside, you don't get to use that space anymore. Not the case any longer. Outdoor shading products are really popular these days. Using a good one is a super big key. Knowing your wind patterns and things like that are really a big, important part of that. I know we work with 3 different vendors for this, depending on where we're putting screens up and how big they are. We've done screens. We're doing one in Oregon right now where we have to worry about 50-mile-an-hour winds in the middle of winter, but it's 35 feet wide. That's a huge sail.
Yeah.
Right? So, but it's great because we've put infrared heaters inside of there and everything else so that when they close those down and they're at a 5% opening, there's not a lot of temperature change inside of it. So they've got the ability to now use their outdoor space even in the wintertime, right? Football's in the winter, guys. So for those of you in cold spaces, you got to realize that football's in the winter, and if your client can take that outside, they really love that opportunity. They spend, $10, $20, $30, $50,000 on an outdoor dining area and all of that stuff. And if you only get to use it 3 months out of the year, it's kind of a waste. So there's a lot of different options that they can put in to get that climate control for that area. Misters, where I'm in Phoenix, so you got to worry about misters during the summer, right? Nobody wants to shut down. Yeah, there's a pool there, that's great, but you still got to keep cool when it's 115 plus degrees for 41 straight days. Rough year this year, sorry. So yeah, controlling those outdoor environments if you can is a great opportunity, and screens, heaters, cooling systems, things of that sort, really play a big part in making that functional year-round.
Yeah, we have probably 50% of our customers, we'd have a screen discussion of some kind of a screen that will pull down, or a shade. A lot of times it's the shade too, just to knock the low sun down so they can enjoy their patio without cooking in the 2 months we do get a warm weather. But infrared heaters, we pre-wire as a standard procedure. We run at least one circuit into the attic area. That way, if they do want to connect them later, we've seen some Infratech stuff's really neat. Recesses looks pretty. Everybody thinks they're all ugly and they're hanging off their walls, but they have some really cool ways to hide those. But getting that wire through that attic later is terrible. So to run one home run all the way out there hasn't been a real big deal. So we always prep that no matter what. So definitely times are changing. I mean, every house we do has a covered back porch of some form. And by the time they put wood ceilings in it, make it look nice, hide a couple speakers in the ceiling, TV typically prepped outside is almost kind of becoming normal, but they're spending $100,000 on that back porch. A lot of times that's not even a big deal. I think you hardly can't get one for less than $40,000 anymore. As far as a new construction build, adding it on. So let them have 2 more months, it's a huge sales point, typically, if you can make them enjoy those spaces because they love them. So,
if you're doing electric heaters and you haven't done a lot of them in the past, plan for a lot of power. You need a lot of power. Okay, I'm just telling you, we've run into so many situations where we end up giving a client 2 heaters when they needed 8 because we don't have enough power. And they always bring this to us late, right? Again, this is one of those aspects you want to plan for early on. Electric heaters take a lot of power. If you're doing gas heaters, it's not a big deal. But if you're doing electric heaters, they take a lot of juice in order to heat those spaces. So make sure you're keeping that in mind when you're designing these systems.
Okay. I had an opportunity to talk to the folks at Marvin Windows a couple months ago. And they've got a motorized product that I'm not sure they're shipping it quite yet, or they're talking about shipping it soon. The Savant Experience Center out in Las Vegas has gigantic sliding windows that open their living space into the outdoor patios and fire pits. I've heard good, bad, and ugly stories about motorized and mechanized windows and doors. What are your thoughts on these things? It feels like a great idea, but in practice, does it work?
Happens here a lot, right? Because we get a lot of people that want to open. I can't tell you how many nano walls we deal with all the time here in this area. So, but up until the last few years, they've been pretty clunky as far as the motorized ones. But recently they've become, it's another one of those things that has worked its way up into an actual product category that actually works and works really well. There's several manufacturers out there that are doing a really good motorized system. And the ones we're doing now are working really well. The stuff we've done in the past years ago were usually really clunky. They were challenging to integrate. They were safety concerns and everything else they had to worry about. But nowadays they're really doing a good job with them.
Yeah, Ron's spot on. I think sometimes as builders, we get turned off from a product that we've had problems with or that the market probably wasn't ready for, and then we just stop paying attention to it when a year or two later the technology changes so much. And I'm in Michigan, so motorized doors, I'm not jumping on that grenade quite yet. A lot of snow and ice where I'm at, but they're going to get to a point where that's going to be functional. But windows, I think that's a cool idea. There's a lot of ways. We're big air quality people, and the homes that we build are super tight, controlled. Cleans the air, filters the air, does all sorts of crazy stuff to the air, and it's kind of nice. So like I have a lot of allergies, so like we don't open the doors, windows of the house if we don't have to. Typically, like twice a year we'll open, purge a little bit, but other than that, the quality of the air inside the home is actually quite nice and fresh. I can check it, monitor it, but I do think having that motorized option would be kind of cool if there are certain days where you can get something figured out where it can open and close as you need to. If the air quality is good outside, it's great because most people I would tell you don't open windows, they open sliders because it's easier, right? So if you could press a button and crack 4 windows in the house to get a cross breeze, I open my basement slider, my upstairs slider, and the air just pulls right through, and within 10 minutes, it's like purged the whole house. But it's being tactful with that. But Ron can make it so you press a button, a couple windows open in different areas or whatnot, and you get a good cross breeze like that, especially on lake houses. People on the water don't care about air quality. They want that fresh air, right? Like, I say they don't care, but they do. But it's less relevant when you have that nice water breeze coming through on a nice day. So those are areas where I think it is a huge upsell, is able to offer them that idea. And the technology is just going crazy with windows and stuff like that. Soon they'll probably have integrated shades. You just press a button and they drop down too. So it's really come a long way. So my thought is just don't discourage it if you've had a bad experience. Wait till the technology catches up, and it could be a really good option and a sales point to your customer.
Well, a big part of our responsibility is to make sure that not only do we design these spaces appropriately and we have the right products in them, but we've got to do a good job of concealing everything, right? Yeah. So I put this picture in here intentionally. That might be the ugliest speaker I've ever seen in my entire life.
I don't know if I can take credit for it, but we can certainly say you're welcome and we're sorry. 1982, this was very innovative. And today we like to call these styrofoam dino poops, if I'm allowed to say that. So there's a lot of different form factors. Sonant's whole go-to-market strategy has been how do we hide technology, and we build speakers, but Ron and many others take this idea of something that is maybe in some cases acceptable to see, and in other cases it's like, what if we could do it differently? And so this is a project in San Diego. The traditional outdoor speaker is a plastic weatherproof speaker. They sound fantastic. They hit price points that are pretty easy for many to enjoy, and so available in white and black. A few years ago, we were playing around with a metal extrusion product in the James loudspeaker brand that we have, and this is the Wedge product. They start their lives as 10-foot extrusions, and then we have a custom paint and powder coat facility in Minden, Nevada. And so if Ron calls and says, Mike, I've got 8 feet, 6 inches, I need these driver configurations, the team goes. And so maybe the next photo shows where, in this case, this project filled in, so it looks like a piece of architectural molding. It looks like a beam. There, we can go as far as hydro dipping the wood grain pattern onto the face of the product, or even digital laser printing. And so really, I think if we can start to conceal technology, sometimes in plain sight, it's part of the wow factor. All of these images come out of a website you all are welcome to visit. This is sonantsdesigngallery.com. There's also an app on the App Store, but this is a beautiful project one of our partners brought us to in Lake Minnetonka. And the client said, we're gonna rearrange patio furniture based on throwing an event or just family dinners. And so rather than put a bunch of wireless speakers around, we worked with the glass manufacturer. So what you're seeing are the glass mullion or support posts are actually James loudspeaker speakers. We worked with the glass manufacturer to actually compress and retain the glass. About every third post is a speaker, and fully weatherproof, rain, snow, ice. And so we get the opportunity sometimes to think differently and solve a problem, and that's where the fun begins. So lots of standard products, but then lots of creativity on the what if side.
Those are James loudspeakers. This was one of my projects.
I was going to say, this looks like you know this project pretty well.
I do know this one. So that speaker in the upper left-hand corner is actually faux finished to match the stone.
Yeah.
And there's a speaker in every single one of those columns. Your subs are in those planting beds.
Yeah.
It was a pretty challenging space because there was no softscape to put anything. So.
Yeah, this is a Mason box product that we developed from feedback from a lot of pool contractors, also golf course HOA, where the homeowner could only go out to a retaining wall, but anything beyond was golf course as part of rules and regs. And so it's a stainless or aluminum back can, essentially that goes in during cinder block phase. It can be had with a flange or without, and then the product goes in, and then the grill, and you guys did a beautiful job here, often will get faux finished, painted, or even hydro dipped like we mentioned. So hiding technology is really the theme of what Sonance and James try to bring to the market. That's a little bit unique.
Before we mix it up again, do you guys have anything to add on concealment and what your best practices are for that?
For us, it's a matter of every house that we go into, everybody says that we want all this technology, we don't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to do that. I know some of you I've spoken to were here last year. You got a chance to view our showroom here in Phoenix, where we focused on strictly hidden technology. Everything that we did in that showroom is really based on how we hide this stuff and make it go away and make it less obvious for the people, but still fully functional. And I think there's an opportunity for all builders to take advantage of those things and talk to their clients and say, well, what all technology do you want? Those of you who are having to deal with interior designers, I know none of you have to deal with interior designers, right? But if you are, there's ways to keep the interior designers happy with the finishes that are being done and still have all the technology that the client wants. So there's a great opportunity there to take advantage of those situations with products like these that are out there that a lot of people don't realize are out there. Everybody says, oh, I want speakers in the living room, and the wife says, no way in hell you're putting speakers in my living room. But when they put them in and they don't realize that they're actually there, now you get the best of both worlds. So there are great opportunities to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the key is just knowing like that stuff ahead of time. We're looking at a project right now, and they're into framing right now, and there's the designers behind. We're getting the lighting schedule together. It's like, oh God, like this is going to be bad. Like, because we're not going to have time to find the right things and the right solutions, and then whatever's left looks bad. Maybe on the AV side, it's like, oh well, you could have got a speaker that matched a 4-inch can light, but we put 6-inch in because we just assumed 6-inch can lights because we didn't have a plan. So the key is planning that ahead of time and working with the people direct. I mean, a lot of times the higher end customers, they don't really care about making the decisions. They just want someone to make sure they're not making a bad decision or the designer's taking over most or the architect. So talking to the right person is important to make sure the decisions are made in a timely fashion.
Well, let's spend a couple minutes talking about designing spaces for entertaining outside.
It's good.
Yeah, that was me.
It's nice. It's nice. It's nice.
I get a lot of requests. I'm sure you all get a lot of requests for spaces where I can, be there with my family, but I also want to have gatherings there, whether it's a family gathering or a business event or just a kid's birthday party. So I'm going to run through some pictures of outdoor spaces. I don't really have any information in the presentation, but I'd love to hear from you all on best practices for doing this with everything we talked about. So from audio and video to lighting, networking, security, what should we be looking for when we're designing an outdoor space?
Functionality, the ability to do the most with the space and take advantage of all seasons, all times of day, things of that sort. Obviously, the audio video stuff is a great add, but usually secondary to functionality. You've got cooking spaces, you've got dining spaces, you've got entertaining spaces, you've got fire pits all over the place nowadays, everything else in there. Making sure that you give them the most possible functionality is the key to success for clients with their outdoor spaces. So we've said this a lot during this presentation, but planning in advance, well in advance with a client and just getting their input on what are you ever going to use this space for? And finding out what their ideas are, because they've all created ideas over the years of what they want to use their outdoor space for. Throwing that all out there and saying, do you want to be able to do this, and this out here? What do you want to be able to do? Makes all the difference in the world in the end.
So, Mike, if I want to invite Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift to my house to play out back there, can I use the speakers that you installed?
It's good. I think our industry has the recommendation of, just like I mentioned, rather than to put 2 giant speakers in this one space, you spread them out. That would be for what we call distributed audio, or maybe a less technical phrase of just music around the home, music outside. Just like in this space, we have PA speakers on the front end of the performance area, the stage. We often see where we have a stage, there's a front of house, and then often it's, can we take the output of the soundboard and what we might call back of house. So sound support versus performance audio, there's still a role and function for both. But when it can work to where you can transition from the bar inside to the backyard outside, the band is going in one corner, but that music's everywhere, that's a big part of that. So it's possible, but it is usually back to what's the plan? And then is there thought on how are we going to connect these systems so that they can talk to each other?
I want to bring in a conversation about collaborating with integrators, collaborating with designers. This came up in the last session too, where everything we're talking about tends to have a relatively large budget attached to it. Jason is a builder and an integrator of sorts. You're faced with that decision where you've got to present what could potentially be a big ticket item to a customer because you think that's what they've asked for. They may not have any understanding of what that budget should have been. I saw it and I thought it was cool. I didn't realize it was $100,000.
Sure.
How do you handle that little back and forth, that dance you have to do?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of planting the seed. As builders, unfortunately, we're tasked with the final run through of if it makes it past us, it probably got built. So like we're the last ones in line that are going to verify the design, the ideas, take the customer's input and make it reality. So asking the right questions is unfortunately tasked with us typically. I know a lot of architects sometimes will take that on, but at some point you having that conversation with the customer of what do you really expect is super important. So yeah, I always like to plant the seed. I think we're the educational channel at some point. Like we have to make sure we're asking them, oh, do you like this audio? A lot of it comes to bass. You get a customer that likes a lot of bass, that gets challenging, right? Like it's hard to put subwoofers. You can hide speakers and make them look pretty, but subwoofers you can now. They're getting better, but that was always a difficult part of what are you able to do with bass and just getting their experience out. But you have to know like what questions to ask and what they're really looking for and who cares about it. Is it the husband, the wife, or whatever, either spouse, doesn't matter. But like sometimes they have a certain vision of what they want, and then it's their office, then you want to step it up in there. So yeah, I think it's definitely a thing you should bring up. I think a lot of times we use it as a sales pitch. So a lot of times we'll make sure we ask those questions. And if they say no, like it's fine, we don't really care. We just want to make sure we ask the right questions. So they'll give us the right answers. And we use that as a sales pitch to the company of like, yeah, we're trying to encapsulate your lifestyle. Because I think most of the things right now, to me, everything, I hear buzzwords every once in a while. You hear this word and it's like, oh, I keep hearing for a whole year is this one word. And right now it's experience. People, they want to live in a home, but they want an experience. I was lucky enough to play with a lot of this tech in my home, and so when I go to a hotel, it's freaking boring. Like I'm like, oh, the toilet seat doesn't shut itself. Like what is going on here, right? So like it's just kind of funny. Like out of the technology you can do now, you can create that like really cool experience. Back in the day, it always seemed to me, maybe just we're poor, I don't know, but we didn't have cool stuff where you go to a hotel, like, wow, that's really wild, really like what you were talking about at the dorm. It's like really cool stuff. But you can have those things in the homes a lot of times now affordably, and if you can give a customer as the builder that experience, they're going to be yours forever because you tried to help them with this. But you have to know like a base level of what's going on. You don't have to sell it to him. That's his job. He can do that. But at the same time, you might have to plant that seed to know when it's a good time to talk to the integrator. Or if you do all the time, that's great too. Some people have different processes, but not everybody wants to hear from the integrator because they're just shut off. Like they don't want to hear about it. They're just like, I'm not interested. But sometimes you'd be surprised. You plant that seed, and then another 2 conversations later, it resurfaces. They had time to think about it, sleep on it, and say, do I really want to do this or not? And then I think it's like, okay, let's talk about that. So I think it's important for exposure. So yes, I don't run from it. We run at it to just to have the conversation.
So you use the word experience, and I think that in my experience, we've changed the the name showroom to experience center.
Yeah.
Right. I know Sonance has done it. Ron, I presume you have. I looked at pictures of your showroom. I only found Sonance's online. So I apologize for not having a photo of your place there.
That's
But
okay.
explain to me the not just the benefit of having an experience center, but how you work with your builder partners, architectural partners, design partners to create an experience, to plant that seed that you were talking about and make sure that everybody understands the menu of options that are out in front of them to choose from.
So I want to take two questions here at the same time. First of all, to tap back onto this one here, a quick show of hands. How many of you in here actually automatically have some sort of a budget, a real technology budget in your budgets when you're presenting to your homeowners initially, whether you're asked or not? Very few. So for those of you that are not doing that, I highly recommend that you talk with an integrator and just get a base budget and start throwing that in there. Because here's the thing that we run into. You start with the stuff we do when clients want to do it right is not cheap, it's expensive. You're building a $5 or $10 million house. I've seen projects put $1 million worth of technology into that house and blow the budget right out of the water. If the clients aren't talking about it early on and there's nothing in their budget for it, you're doing them a disservice because they're going to want it. 90% of the time, these clients are all going to want some sort of technology. If you drop the budget after you've talked to them, that's great. But if you don't put something in initially, you're really doing them a disservice. So think about that. As far as the, I'm sorry, let me get back to your other question again. I dropped it. Sorry, I had that stuck in my head.
Experience center.
Oh yes, showrooms. So I will tell you, I've been doing this for 40 years and I have never had a showroom. I hate showrooms. I love experience centers done by my manufacturers, but I never get clients into my showroom. I have a great showroom here in Phoenix and it's the first one we've done in many years. I think we've had 2 clients in it, Jordan, maybe 5, okay, in the last 2 years. We sell experiences, so that's not necessarily done in a showroom. It's done by sitting down with your client and finding out what's important to them. But manufacturers all over the place are putting together experience centers where you can take a client and where an integrator can take a client and show them the things that they're talking about for those people who are really touchy-feely, because you get those people. We did it because manufacturers are actually asking us to do it, so we're forcing ourselves to put these places in place. And for us, it's all about hidden technology. We're big on hidden technology. We want to make sure that the clients get the experience they want, but they don't have to stare at it all the time. So those are great opportunities. Companies like Sonance and James are building out their office buildings that used to be very much just production centers. They're making experience centers out of them. Lutron, several other manufacturers are doing this throughout the country. They're all over the place. Get your integrators to take your high-end clients to these locations so that they can stand in a room and actually see it all in functionality. Makes a big difference on the amount of money they're willing to spend on it and the type of experience they're going to get in their house in the end.
Mike, can you describe a little bit the automated experience you guys put together? I think that was one of the cooler things I've seen in the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, you all are officially invited next time you're in Southern California. Come say hi. Sonance is in San Clemente, so we're right halfway between LA and San Diego. And our concept has been that as an industry, when we launch a new product, we often start with technical specifications. So if I meet with Ron and Jordan and we're looking at what's the woofer material made out of and all these technical details, we've not done a good job telling a story about what experience does this provide. And so we've partnered with a number of other vendors. But we've got 30,000 feet in San Clemente where the goal is to have a product conversation and then have an experience tied to it in each segment. And so whether that's speakers that can be drywalled over or speakers that can go into a wood ceiling and grills can be fabricated from that cedar plank all the way to the outdoor audio home theater market. Lutron recently shut down their Orange County Experience Center, and so we'll be hosting them inside the building as the new Orange County Lutron Ketra Experience Center GE monogram. Built a beautiful kitchen. They'll be doing cooking demonstrations out of that space, and so on. There's 4 other partners that are there in our space, and so whether it's our facility or others, I think if we can get the client to give us the time, I know that's the hard part, right? Clients are are busy, they're moving around. And so we're trying to create an environment where you can get 2, 3, 4 concepts into one space. Even though we're the speaker manufacturer, we're trying to facilitate the entire conversation can be had in one building. So Sonance Design Gallery is probably the best way to get a peek at that, and then a little bit of follow-up. But this is that website we were referring to, and we try to give the client a little bit of a visual where you hit play, rather than have those 2 speakers coming at you. It's what would it look like to have sound all around? Well, sound is very hard to show, and so what we're showing on screen here is what we call Sonance Sound Mist, but we're just trying to have a visual cue for the client to understand that we can actually have sound everywhere and turn that volume down as we progress through, highlighting here in Arizona. This is a project where the speakers actually look like small outdoor lighting fixtures, and we're looking for even balanced coverage. That design to disappear tab at the bottom, we start to use the language of a landscape architect, where we talk about softscape and ceiling, surface mount, hardscape and freestanding. And so that example that Sean showed is found here. So you can drive this content yourself. Would love feedback on what abouts in different applications, but we're trying to think different about the way we present products from a technical standpoint to more of a lifestyle application standpoint. So yeah, this is a little bit of the traditional speaker grill versus the wood finish. Just really unique ways to hide technology on these projects. Yeah, thanks for hosting the conversation. For sure.
My pleasure. I think this is great. I think that showrooms and websites and experience centers are a way that we can, at least demonstrate to our customers what is possible. I think if we all have a shortcoming, it's exactly that we're used to what we're used to. We like to have a client come to us, they want us to build them a beautiful home or give them a great integrated systems experience, and we ask them what they're looking for. And a lot of times they have a hard time answering because they don't know. They haven't seen what's out there. So this, it sort of expands the horizons, not just for the customers, but for you as a builder, even for me as an integrator, when I come to see the new products that you developed, even working on them.
Yeah.
It's really useful and really helpful. So I encourage everyone to continue to attend events like this, and thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.